Hey everybody, it's Christine here for Gluten Is Gone, and today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about cross-contamination. When you are gluten-free and you're living with someone else, be it your parents or roommates or a significant other that isn't gluten-free, there is a constant risk for contamination. And I'm going to give you guys some tips to help you avoid it, but unfortunately, it's inevitable. You're going to get sick because when there's gluten in your house, it's around you, it's so easy to get it in something that you don't want it in. But I'm going to give you some tips that'll help you separate it out. The first is always remember what things are likely to be coming in contact with gluten, and that you should keep gluten-free versions separate. For instance, things like mayonnaise, peanut butter, butter, all of those things like that, jelly. People who aren't gluten-free might put on bread, and they would take some out of the jar with a knife, and then they put it on the bread, and then they put the knife back in the jar and get more. That's contaminated it. There could be a crumb of gluten in there, and you could get sick from it if you're super sensitive. So something like that, it's a good idea to just have two separate versions, a gluten-free and a non-gluten-free, because if it's unfair to ask the people who aren't gluten-free to remember to never put the knife back in or to clean the knife between every time, because they're really going to forget. So I think it's a good idea to keep those separate and just keep them labeled. Label it on the top, and then you won't have to worry about it. Another thing that runs risks for cross-contamination are your counters. When somebody pulls a piece of bread out of the bag, it can leave crumbs on the counter, and people aren't always going to remember to clean the counters for you after they've made a sandwich. So before you cook or go in the kitchen, always just quickly give the counters a wipe down, at least where you're going to be working. Also, particularly for your pots and pans, that aren't dishwasher safe, that you're just hand washing, I recommend keeping a gluten-free set because especially for things like a cookie sheet where you're toasting bread or you're baking real cookies, it's really easy for there to be some residue on the pan even after you've washed it, and that's a risk for contamination. So I think it's simpler to just keep a separate set of pans. Cutting boards are another big offender. A lot of people don't always wash a cutting board after they use it, especially if you have, a baguette and they're just cutting a few little pieces off. They'll just dust it off, put it back. That's a risk for contamination, so I would just keep a separate one altogether. Because you have to remember, you want to make it to where you're the least likely to get sick, and it's the least inconvenience to everyone else that you're living with, and it's less for them to have to worry about. You don't want to make it be a huge burden on everyone else and yourself. So I hope this helps. It is really hard, and it kind of stinks having to have your own set of everything, but I think it's the best way to go. So remember to subscribe to my channel, Gluten Is Gone, and subscribe to my blog, glutenisgone.blogspot.com. See you next time.